Before we begin, I just wanted to put a quick little announcement ahead of our Mockingjay podcast that this was recorded pre-writer strike, and going forward, we will not be covering the movie versions of any books that we talk about until we get fair contracts and a good wage. Let's get into it. Your desk is ready. She's clean. She's good to go. Your phone isn't gonna bing.
It's not even clean. I lost the phone. Oh, here it is.
Okay, the phone doesn't bing. It's just one of those days, guys. Here we go. You ready? Let's
y'all. I have to call a plumber today. I don't even want to talk about it. I'm on my second at-home beer of the day.
No. Was it the toilet or the sink, though?
It was the bathtub. It was the motherfucking bathtub.
Ugh, the worst.
That's frustrating.
Did you get a smell good plumber at least?
No, we have a man who comes to our building like every time we have to call one. It's the same guy because our landlord sends out the work order to whoever. And this man, he looks like he needs to retire. And I feel badly for him. And then there's a language barrier. And I'm like, I am yelling at somebody's grandpa right now who needs to be at home watching his stories.
Yeah, that's not a good feeling.
That's a rough day. I have to start this with, I was corrected by a listener that Jennifer Lawrence was in Winter's Bone and not Lovely Bones. So these are two very different movies with bone in the title that came out around the same time.
They both got bones.
They both got bones.
She was in a bone movie.
Yeah. So that was Lindsay. Lindsay called me and said, "You dummy." So I just needed to share that with the two of you, and our listeners, and she'll love that I did that.
How dare she call us out? Let us be ignorant. This is America.
This is America.
Not Panem.
Not exactly. Not Panem. So we are diving into the final original trilogy book of the Hunger Games series, Mockingjay. Woo! Woo! Keiki, I would love, since this is your first time reading this entire series, to just give me your overall thoughts on the book. Did you like it? Were you like, F it all? What'd you think?
You know, this book, in summation, literally has made me hate everybody. Like, how could something so beautiful crash and burn in such a traumatic way? Like, we didn't need to go there on anything, you know? Maybe I am a romance girl, so I like a happy ending, you know? Twilight has a happy-ish ending. Nobody dies.
Mm-hmm.
But Mockingjay really put me through it. Not to say I don't love it. I am a Hunger Games stan. I am there. Like, if I would have read this series back in the day, I would have been one of those people with all the stuff.
Welcome to the fold, Keiki. We welcome you. So to put a little recap on it, where Catching Fire ends is Katniss is taken out of the Hunger Games. She wakes up in District 13. She finds Haymitch and Plutarch, and all these people. She like Finnick, like all talking, and she's like, "What's going on?" And she learns that she was like part of a ploy, and that Peeta's not there, and she gets upset. So that's kind of where like Mockingjay basically picks up from there. However, what we also learn, because I think at the end of that one is also when Gale tells her like District 12 is destroyed. There's no more District 12. So this book starts with Katniss visiting District 12, which the movie completely skips. And while she's there, because she sees the damage, she starts doing her little technique to make sure things are real. Like, I'm Katniss Everdeen. I'm from District 12. These are the things that I was in the Hunger Games. And she's just racked with so much guilt. And I feel like Jennifer Lawrence, again, I'm so upset that they do not take YA films seriously, because she acted the crap out of this role, in my oh so humble opinion.
Yeah, she killed it for sure.
Like, I love her. I loved her then. We got oversaturated with her, and now she's back, and I'm very excited because I think she's fantastic. When casting these people, like when we get to Boggs, I was not expecting Boggs to be a black man, but I love Mahershala Ali, and now I can't see him as anyone else after watching the movie.
Yeah, and what was really funny for me is, like, I've seen the movies. Like, I've seen the movies multiple times, but reading these books for the first times, I don't know how or why, but I casted Boggs as someone completely different in my head. And yes, I did make him white male, which makes me mad at myself. And yeah, when I rewatched the movie after, I was like, oh, it's Mahershala. Like, my guy.
Also, what do you guys think of Philip Seymour Hoffman as Plutarch?
Boring.
What? I liked it.
I mean, he's a good actor, but I just really think in reading the book, Plutarch seems a little bit more extravagant and elevated in a sense of a person, kind of above it all. You know, he sees the big picture. Mm-hmm. And he's really got this director vibe to me inside the book, but that doesn't translate for me inside the movie. Instead, I see Plutarch more as like a politician, which is weird to me in the movie.
Interesting.
I can vibe with that, but I feel like that's the route they took with a lot of the movie casting, which is something that Sarah and I called out at book 1, is that a lot of the extravagance and like whimsy and just strangeness of the Capitol, they didn't have any of that in the books. And just to fast forward a little bit, that is my biggest fucking gripe when Tigress comes out, but we'll get there when we get there, is that
I agree.
From what we see on the page and what we see in the movies don't necessarily match up. And I think that for the direction they were going with in the movies, Philip Seymour Hoffman was a great choice. And I think they chose so many really good actors to try and bring some gravitas to what could have been a silly teen movie.
I agree. I like Julianne Moore as President Coin, I think was like chef's kiss. She's what I imagined. She was stoic, she's cold, and she's such a strong woman. And I loved her in this role.
Yes. I mean, you know, if we're sticking specifically to the movie, yes, I loved her in this role. She did a great job. I do think from reading the book, like I've said this entire time, the book is so much darker. And maybe we can like take a second to kind of sidetrack on that. I really feel like District 13, we're not shown it in the same capacity as it comes into my mind from off the page. This is very much like a communist society. You know, everyone wears the same thing. Everyone has to eat at a certain time. They have a schedule printed on their arm. It's basically, we're here to sustain type of situation.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. It's wild how downplayed I felt like it was in the movie.
It did. And movies 3 and 4 dropped the ball. First of all, if you're going to split this one book up into 2 movies, then I want a lot of detail. I want every single bit of detail, because you've turned this one book into 2 movies, and then the movies don't deliver on that, and you miss so much. And there's a lot of things in the movies that aren't as heavy or don't land correctly for me, because you don't see how messed up District 13 is. I don't think you really see how the Capitol and District 13 are 2 sides of the same coin in the movies. Well, oh my God, and her name is President Coin. Was that on purpose? Did she do that on purpose?
They're 2 sides of the same coin. Yeah. And that's what's really funny about this, because we all know, like, can we just break up the...
Sure, we always do.
We all know that this book ends with Katniss killing Coin, you know, when she was supposed to be killing Snow. And I feel like that was an obvious choice, because they're the same person. We're not going to trade one world for the same world with a different color on it. Like, they were doing this for democracy, and having Coin in place was not going to create a democracy. And she made the right choice. Destroy it all.
I agree. That was the choice to make in the end, for sure. But to back it up.
Oh, we gonna get there later.
Yeah, to dive back in the books a little bit. So Katniss is like getting downloaded with all this information. Like 15 minutes after the games ended, the world explodes. The bombs came. Gale saved as many people as he possibly could. And this puts such a rage into Katniss that she is so ready to burn things down. and she's willing to take on the role that they created for her as the face of the revolution. The movie version, I feel like this is finally her moment, but she's still so hesitant, where book Katniss is more than ready. And I wish that they didn't weaken her as a character, because she's not a weak character.
Yes.
And they instead in the movie also, like, because the book starts with her seeing it and she's like so racked and like destroyed by District 12. Instead, the movie has them using Katniss seeing District 12 as part of their plan to make her fall in line. And so they change things to make it like Katniss never wanted this, but more to manipulate her into doing things, when in the book she very much was a part of it and ready to go.
Exactly. Like, Katniss is very much used in the movies and in the book series, as a mouthpiece. But what the movie fails to show is that she was down. She would have done this if given the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
They kept her in the dark for their own selfish reasons, and it created much more turmoil because she wasn't allowed to use her own mind and mental sacrifice for it. She was just a pawn, and she lost people she cared about in the fray of it. And that's what's really sad and disheartening. I don't think she was given an opportunity.
So when she's in District 12, President Snow, I love the cat and mouse game between Katniss and President Snow. He leaves her these fresh white roses in Victor's village because he knows that she'll see them. And it just like makes her so mad. And I do like that the movie adds a little extra. So you have Snow, who then goes on and says a warning to the people of Panem with a message saying, like, if anyone joins the rebellion, if anyone's wearing the Mockingjay symbol or anything like the braid, even, like, they are considered treason. And like, you see this little girl like taking out her braid and she's so afraid, and you see people being shot in the districts. And I really think while the last two movies, the Mockingjay Part 1 and 2 don't necessarily get everything right, I do think them splitting it up they were able to put in more details like this to really show the fear and the strength of Panem for the audience.
Yes, I think it's kind of laid out that there is this air of fear amongst all of the districts, and like very much in the book, we hear about the districts through somebody else's point of view, and this book is told through Katniss's point of view.
Right. So
the one thing the movie does give us is that we kind of get our eyes on what's happening everywhere and like a grander scope of things. But
exactly.
Yeah, in the book, it kind of just seemed like he was waiting for Katniss to kind of get ahead before things fell apart. And in the movie, it's very much like Snow is put out there as if he's always trying to stay ahead of the Mockingjay.
Yeah.
And I feel like that wasn't really the case by the time we got to this third book. When reading it, it felt like, the inevitable was going to happen.
Yeah, but again, we don't know because, like you said, it's told from Katniss's point of view. So anything that Snow was doing, she wouldn't know. If she didn't see it, hear it, touch it, feel it, like she doesn't know. So I like that the book that the movies did these things. And then I'm going to say it, Josh Hutcherson, I think, is the weakest link in these last two movies. And it starts with his first interview with Caesar. So we see him because Katniss knows he's there being tortured. And then he has this line in the book that is so important and so poignant. He says, "To murder innocent people, it costs everything you are." And his delivery of that line was just so weak. It was like Finnick, right? When Finnick was like the sugar cubes. I read that so much like sexier than it was ever delivered in the movie. So with this one, I'm just like, this is supposed to be a very powerful moment, and it's just not. And then, Caesar, of course, is going to insinuate all these things about Katniss. Peeta is going to rip into him in order to, to defend her till his death, as we know. And then he calls for a ceasefire, which pisses everyone off in District 13. And it is what it is. So at this point, everyone knows like things have to happen. I think it's really silly if the district really thinks that Peeta is part of the Capitol. Like, that just doesn't track. They're smarter than that to me.
Right? It kind of bothers me how Katniss is the only person who can figure out that, like, oh, Peeta's being used. Like, how is this whole room of adults and military officials just gone completely stupid? And all of a sudden are like, oh yeah, Peeta's definitely on their side.
Yeah. I mean, like, even Gale gets it. He's trying to keep you alive. Like, Gale, who wants nothing more than for Peeta to go away, is like, no, it's fine. You know?
I was going to say that in the book, you know, we have Katniss walking into like conversations where she hears like Coin regret about like rescuing her over Peeta and stuff like that, because, you know, Katniss is in her defiant kind of space, you know? And I feel like because of that, in the book, it kind of sets up that Peeta is a favorite, you know, and that Peeta's a stronger person. And Josh Hutcherson in the movie weakened it by kind of playing up this fear of the Capitol. And I feel like that like tenacity and like charm that Peeta's supposed to have really kind of fell out at that point.
Truly.
Because I feel like it's supposed to be like he's still trying to be his charming self, but he is being tortured, but he's still trying to get on TV and be like, let me be serious. You know, that's what I wanted to see. And that just like was not there. The charm was gone. I was like, he's giving up and he shouldn't be giving up. Like, it just seemed messy. It seemed whiny.
You have all these great Peeta moments from the last book where he's like talking about how where you find out about Peeta's personality, and you find out that Peeta hates the Capitol just as much as everyone else and is like just as in it to win it as Gale is, as far as like fucking up the Capitol is concerned. And then in the last movie, the way that it's played on screen, it just seems like all of that character development goes out the window.
Completely. It's so strange. I don't know what happened. Everyone else got the memo. And then the movie tries to add this like weird flashback with Katniss and Peeta. And I think just to maybe build more into their relationship, because I think that the author really wanted her to end up with Peeta. And she kind of wrote herself into a corner a little bit on that. And so she had to like make things happen for, you know, like she just did. And so I think the movie was trying to like course correct a little bit so that people could see Katniss's and Peeta's connection and things that we don't get to see at all in the book or the movie, really. So it was just like such a weird, like forced in moment to me. Anyway, at this point, Katniss is more than ready to be the Mockingjay. However, she's got that list of demands. And I love this moment. Like, she's like, everyone has to be safe. Peeta has to be alive. Annie has to come, you know, like, and you have to vow this in front of everybody. And I think this scene is so good in the movie. And I also love it when President Coin flips it back on her in the book and the movie. These are all the moments that the movie gets right to me. Another thing the movie does is they give us more Effie, because the book does not. So we, instead of her team,
that's the one thing that I like about the movie, that we get more Effie Trinket.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. They did that because they did not give us her team.
Correct.
You know? And I think that is another disservice because when we are in District 13, we end up figuring out, like, after Katniss agrees to be the Mockingjay, that her team is being held captive there.
Yes.
And, like, they're being tortured, you know, like, and they're like, well, you know, they took a piece of bread. Like, you know, like the most ridiculous thing.
So ridiculous.
And Katniss is just like, these aren't the type of people you torture. They don't know anything. They know no better. And nobody really understands that. And it's just so frustrating because for me, that sets up more of the dynamic where Katniss knows Coin is using me and she wants a specific thing from me and she will harm anything outside in my way to make sure she keeps me under her thumb and in her control. And it's like all those little instances, her saying, I wish we took Peeta, you know, that those examples that happened in the book that aren't in the movie kind of, I think, helps build to the fact that Katniss doesn't really like Coin and gives her more reasoning for just like going through with killing her at the end, you know?
Well, because it's not even dislike, it's being able to see who Coin is. Katniss can see who Coin is, and Everybody else has their blinders on and just thinks that, oh, well, she's not President Snow. This is not the capital. This is not Panem. It's going to be okay. And people cannot be honest about the fact that Coin is also a dictator. And Katniss is one of, and I'm sure we're seeing it through her point of view. So maybe there are dialogues that other characters had that we're not aware of. But from Katniss's point of view, she instantly picks up on the fact that Coin is also a dictator, and we are no better off under Coin.
Yes.
Correct. And the movie tries to humanize Coin by giving her a family and saying that she lost her family. And like, that's where this all comes from. I was like, we don't need to humanize her. We don't need to do that. I don't care. And there's like a couple other things that the movie does, like to course correct. Like you said, Kiki, we don't have the team. Because like Katniss and Gale are allowed to go hunting, right? And while they're out there, they start having this whole conversation and Katniss starts defending the beauty team. But in the movie, it's just like weird and they go hunting and it's just to like see animals who have never been hunted and no real important conversation happens. So like, what was the point of that even? They're like, these animals don't know to be afraid of us. They've never been hunted. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Is that what we're comparing the team to? The animals who've never been hunted? Is that that's their nod?
Yeah, maybe it is their nod, but I feel like the book, really, the book lit into Gale. Like the book killed Gale for me. This book overall, like
that's
Gale
what I was just about to say, Kiki. Thank you.
Go off, sis, because Gale dug his grave and had to lie in it on this one.
The movies soften so many things that are not in service to the overall story of the Hunger Games. Part of that is how they portray District 13 and Coin. Part of that is how they portray Gale. Because when you read the books, you can understand why Katniss ends up with Peeta. I'm not saying it's a choice that I support, but you can very much see why Gale was not an option. The movies don't play it that way. And they continue like, he's a little soft boy. They make a martyr out of him. He's so sweet. They go hunting together. And in the books, Gale is Coin's stooge from day one. He gets a little risk communicator from her. He's doing her bidding. He's number one in their military classes. He's coming up with bombs and different way to kill people. He is all up in that shit. And Katniss is like, hey, why are you keeping secrets from me? Why are you working for Coin? Aren't you suspicious that this is the same thing that's going on in Panem? And Gale is like, fuck it, man. I got a bomb.
Yeah, like
I hear you guys.
Empathy for all. No, Katniss feels empathy for all. Like she understands a human being and she is someone who is in survival mode her entire life and then gets thrown into this game. And she understands that people do what they got to do to survive. And no one's any different in any district other than playing their certain part and role. And she sees the blood on her hands and the blood on everyone's hands for the way they're going about this revolution. And Gale is so blinders on. I watched 90% of my district burn. I couldn't save them. Let's burn them all. Like, fuck it all. And she can't get him to see her side of it. And I feel like that's just right wing, left wing situation going on right there. Like you're never going to
Same bird.
You're never gonna get along with that person or be able to be with that person because they can't feel and justify the world the same way you do.
I hear you, and I wholeheartedly disagree, but that's okay. I completely disagree.
What? Who? Why? Tell us why, Gale.
Their own logic that she has empathy.
Gale is still an option?
100%. I do not understand at all Katniss's logic behind any decision she made when it came to these two boys. I would rather her have been alone than with Peeta. I can't get behind Peeta in any way, shape, or form.
I can't get behind either of them. I'm team Katniss on her own.
Her being with Peeta.
But I can get behind Gale because
we're all agreeing on that.
Yeah, I can get behind Gale because I don't agree that they don't see the world in the same way. I think they're also slightly two sides of the same coin. She very much wants revenge and she wants to go for things. And Gale is like, I'm all in. I'm going to burn this shit down. And here's how we're going to do it because I'm not an idiot. And they go toe to toe on each other all the time. Very Edward and Bella, in that they don't let each other get away with bullshit because they are best friends who've known each other their whole lives.
Look, but this is also why she ends up with Peeta, because Gale lacks empathy and sympathy, but he's driven by his experience just as much as she's driven by her own experience.
For sure.
Like, he can't see Katniss's need to protect others from the trauma of experiencing the Hunger Games, like from being in the games, her need to take care and doesn't want casualties of other people for her survival. Gale doesn't give a fuck because he wasn't there. He doesn't have that trauma, on top of him. So he's like, whatever it costs, be it as it may, people can die, because for him, it's such an exchange. He's turned everyone into animals because he's seen people treated like animals and herded and killed like animals. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been put on display like her, forced to hunt human beings. So he doesn't understand what it's like to have actual blood on your hands from killing an innocent person,
Sure.
And that's what makes him like such a deviant to me in this movie. Like, just sitting here with Beatty, like building bombs and coming up with this tech, and
it's war. It's what you have to do. They were fighting for to take down the Capitol, and he was he's going to be a part of that because he believes in the cause, just like she believes in the cause. They just want to go about it slightly differently. She's more than happy to murder the people she wants to murder, and he's more than happy to help take down the what are the Capitol Guards, whatever they're called, like take them all down in order to get to what they need. They all want the same goal.
I just think,
and they basically go about it the same way, but she's so judgy on how he wants to do it.
Because Gale doesn't understand how mentally damaging it is.
I don't agree with that. It's not the same thing. Katniss wants to be very surgical and take down the right people. Gale wants to burn everything towards his end goal, and that's very much a different thing.
Whole different ball game.
And the ends don't justify the means in this situation. It's war.
Yeah, war is messy. War is never clean. War is not black and white. And I think that's what this book does tell very well. No one comes out unscathed. No one comes out clean. No one comes out undamaged. You know what I mean? And some people have to make the tough decisions, and some people aren't okay with the tough decisions. There are decisions made that no one will be, you can't make everyone happy with the tough decisions that get made in wars like this.
No, but I do think,
but Gale made some really shitty decisions.
Yes. If you create a weapon of mass destruction, it will be used.
100%.
Like, there's no just like, and we have a bomb, be afraid of us. Like, you're going to have to demonstrate it. And the casualties at that of human life are people who never wanted, these things to happen in general. Like there's this stupid quote that I remember trying to be forced in a documentary I was working on. And it's like, when the elephants fight, the grass gets hurt. And I'm like, this is so stupid. But like,
cool. But it's true.
It's true. It is something that aligns with like war. Like, these are two entities at each other, and there are going to be casualties in their battle and fight. It can't be solved on paper. It can't be these two people in a duel or shootout. Like, people are going to die. But Katniss wants to go the route of, calculated resistance, and Gale wants to go the path of least resistance.
Well, look, he's making is very calculated. She just doesn't like it. She doesn't like the timed bomb idea. That's like, it is what it is. But again, I will go down fighting for him. It is what it is.
you just like the wrong guys.
He became a District 13 stooge. There was no calculation. It was just
agreement to be a shit bag, a jarhead. We
will agree to disagree.
We can move on because, God, what do we spend like 10 minutes yelling about Gale? Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree about Gale.
But again, back to the point.
This never manipulated her feelings. He lets her be.
Whatever,
she doesn't bring it up again, and she's like, "Why don't you bring this up?" He's like, "Because we're doing things of more important things."
He's so gross for it too, because the only reasoning for like rescuing Peeta or helping in any general get him back in, Katniss's view is because he feels like
he has no
will
chance
never
if there's no
truly-
Peeta.
he will
100%.
never truly be able to control her if that person is always in the back of her head.
Gale has never wanted to control her. That's Peeta. Don't mix them up. Peeta does nothing but manipulate her constantly.
They're both manipulative.
Hard disagree on that one. But no, he knows. He's like, he even
gonna
says
have
it.
to
And they
move
kept,
forward, or we gonna be here all night.
we're going to be here all day. I'm like, but I'm just saying, last thing, he says, even in the movie, they kept it, that he knew he had to get him. Otherwise, he'd have no chance because she would be constantly worried about him. So that's, while it does like help him, hopefully in the future, he knew he still had to do it regardless, even knowing in the end, she probably wasn't going to choose him. That's my backup noise. So, we are now getting them to fight, to shoot the first Propo video. And I think the movie makes this so great. It is hilarious. And Haymitch's delivery of, and that's how the revolution
so funny.
dies. So glad they kept that line. And it's like Jennifer Lawrence, she's like, we fight, we do things, we make magic. It was just so good. It's just so good. And then they take her to the hospital because she refuses to stay. And she is a star there. And she has no idea that people look up to her like this. And it's another thing that I think the movie captured really, really well. One, we're finally seeing all the darkness and devastation from the war at this point. They finally mention an Avox in the movie because of her team.
80 years later.
80 years later, and it is played by one of the Bash brothers in the Mighty Ducks. Because, she gets her whole team. That is her video team.
I thought this whole team was cast very well, but I will say watching it again made me mad in retrospect because I remember they hyped up, oh my God, I can't think of her real name, but she was Marjorie in Game of Thrones. They hyped up her being in these movies so much, and then she's...
Natalie Dormer.
Yes, they hyped up Natalie Dormer being in these movies so much, and she's in them for a total of like 7 minutes tops.
Yeah, it's just once they leave and then they go on all those journeys, that's where she's at. And then but she's like that in the book too. She's not in it a ton.
Yeah, but I think like me not having read the books going into the movie, I had no idea who she was. So after reading the books and seeing the movie, I'm like, there was no point in putting like a well-known actor in this spot. Like, what a waste.
Straight up.
She said maybe 4 words.
I think she wanted it because you got to get away, because at that point she was in The Tudors, right? That was like the big thing for her. And I think she was just trying to get away from period pieces. And then she goes into Game of Thrones after this. So it was like breaking because like she actually shaved half her head. Like she did that. I think it was just to get away from Anne Boleyn for a while, which she's great in. If you've never seen The Tudors, watch The Tudors.
Which white man did you guys see as Boggs in your head?
Oh, as Boggs?
I saw Patrick Warburton.
I don't think I think I just had like a lot of times my brain just goes generic white man. Like I don't really picture somebody all the time.
Yeah, I just went like generic salt and pepper white man. Oh, you know what? Did you watch the Winx saga?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the teacher who teaches them combat? That's very much the type of person I saw in my head.
That's so funny.
That's good.
But they're filming in the hospital, and I think Jennifer Lawrence is spectacular in this scene. Like, she made me feel so much more than just reading it in the book. And I really do like that the movie adds the scene of Snow making the choice to bomb the hospital. And it justifies the added scene from earlier where he calls things treason. So the fact that they even allowed her to walk in the hospital was treasonous, and that's why he bombed it. And I actually really like that, because it's not it's not a good justification, but it's a reason other than he's just there, you know.
I don't know, I was a little hurt because that was like a bunch of people of color that were in the movie.
Yeah, right. It's really shameful how few people of color you see up until we get to this bombed out hospital.
I know. And then these are the people that die. And I was just like, oh, wow, cool. But again, I thought the movie like played this kind of well. I loved in the book how like, you know, Katniss and Gale have like just this synergy between them when it comes to hunting, you know, because they've done it so long that when they were taking down planes from the sky. It was literally like they were hunting ducks, you know? It was easy for them.
It's very, I like you used the synergy. They were in sync.
They were in sync. They could kill together because they've been killing together for their entire life.
They know each other's next moves. They can read each other's minds when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah. But I like the way that played out. I do think it was a really strong, powerful scene in the movies from Katniss. I thought it was a little downplayed in the books. What the movie does that the book doesn't do is that they picked and choose like random things to play up and ways of getting these propos thrown back in and these interview moments thrown back in. So, you know, that was their choice with the hospital and it was fine.
It's such a powerful moment. They couldn't not put it in there. Like, it's such a pivotal moment in the entire story.
Yeah.
So when they get back to 13, it's Peeta's next interview, and Gale and Finnick both tell her to lie to Coin about seeing Peeta because they think that she's going to lose her mind, basically, about the whole thing. And this is just another moment that I just don't think he carries these scenes well. And he's like, can you trust the people that you are working with? Like, that's the big warning in this one. So then Katniss and Gale go get into a fight in District 12. This is when she like is sitting there and she sings The Hanging Tree, which I think like didn't it like Billboard? Wasn't it like top 10?
Oh yeah.
It was on the radio.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was on the radio.
This Hanging Tree with Jennifer Lawrence. I was like, is she
wild
nominated?
if you think about it.
Wild that this movie, like she sang this song and it was on the radio. It's so crazy. And then we get this scene and it's like they're in the house, Gale's upset, and Katniss kisses him. And he's like, yeah, I knew you'd do that. And she's like, how? Because even I didn't. He's like, because I'm in pain. And this entire monologue from Liam Hemsworth, like this is his moment to shine. I thought he delivered this moment so beautifully where he calls her out for manipulating him when he is down because she wants to make him happy but isn't able to like deal with her own feelings in life and what's going on at the time, which again, 16, I get it. She's too young to be dealing with any of this in general. You know, you can just really see the weight that this character has to carry and his inspiration and what he's really, really fighting for.
I mean, yeah, Liam Hemsworth did a really great job delivering this, but I really don't like the way that they characterized Gale in the movies. It's not the same.
It's not the same.
This scene was exactly the same as the book, just letting you know.
Yeah.
I went back to do it because I had to make sure.
But I even think that a lot of like Gale's complaints are very incel adjacent. I don't think that Gale was an incel, but I think that he had some of those like, if I'm nice to Katniss enough, then love will fall out of her, which like, that's not how it works, bro. Get over it. She doesn't like you.
Yeah. And I think, you know, and picking and choosing the scenes that they could give Gale in the movie, we lost Katniss's point of view of what she was fighting for with Gale throughout this entire book, which was his choice and direction to join the cause in such a brutal matter.
Well, because she never actually explains that to Gale.
She never explains it, but like I don't think it takes a rocket science to figure that out.
There are just some things you don't have to
never gives her the benefit of the doubt.
Like, for example, Gale's death trap avalanche thing that he came up with, you know, that would just lock everybody in this mountain. He should have saw why that would have triggered Katniss. Like, she's having flashbacks of how her father died in a mine trapped, you know? And his idea is like, let's do that. And she's like, let's at least leave one way for people to get out. Like, and he's like, no. Why?
Damn, bro.
And I'm just like, this is cold. Like,
war is cold, guys. War is cold. I don't know what to tell you. War is cold.
Thank you for your service. I can't be with you. A cab all day, okay?
It's not
Like
Even Paw Patrol.
Yeah, he became part of the Paw Patrol, and I was not a part of it. I was not behind it.
So the next morning is the big one where Peeta's telling everybody that they will be dead by morning, and then they drag him off and he's getting beaten up. This is such a weird scene in the movie for me because everyone's panicking, which they should be. But then all of a sudden, like, Katniss is being trampled. The bunker is nothing like it's supposed to be. And I'm just like, why did we add that? Like, extra thing of her being stomped on by everyone trying to rush down as she's trying to rush up to get her sister. And, you know, Gale comes down with her sister and the cat because the freaking cat, always the cat, the sister always trying to save this cat. Just let the cat go.
Yeah, I mean, I love Katniss's little quips at this cat. Like, I should have turned you into a pair of gloves, like things left and right, because this cat does cause issues for her. But I do understand what you're saying about how the book and the movie really messed up this like bombing, get to the bunker situation.
Yeah.
Like, there are some parts like towards the end where she's running out to get Prim and they're shutting the door that are like just like the book, but the chaos of it is just so not 13. Like,
right.
This is a military district. Come on. You know they got this down packed. This is a drill. This is nothing big to them. They've done it before.
Yeah, which is why I'm like, mass panic? Not in 13. There's no such thing as mass panic in 13. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
They have drills all the time. They know how this goes.
Exactly. So once this whole thing kind of calms down and they realize like the bombing is happening, but they don't actually know where District 13 is. So they're like, we're not going to retaliate because then we'll give our location away. Like, it's so smart. They learn that, and this is like this is where the movie gets split, and this is where the movie starts to wrap up. Haymitch tells Katniss that there's a plan to rescue Peeta from the Capitol, and of course, Gale was the first person to volunteer. And so they go, and I love the way that the movie cuts this in and out, because again, book is from Katniss's point of view. We don't know what's going on. But one thing that I wish that they had changed was Finnick then, in order to distract, they get into the feed, and then Finnick starts dropping the secrets. Because as we know, Finnick deals in secrets. That was his, when he was being, you know, escorted out. I was trying to think of a nice word. When he was being escorted out by the Capitol, he gained secrets. And so he gives this great monologue, dropping all these secrets. And they use that to intercut with the video of everyone getting in there to rescue Peeta. And I wish that they had given Finnick more than just the intercut, because it's such a powerful moment. It's really where you learn so much about him and what he has been through because of the Capitol. I just think it should just like sat on him a little more, and then maybe put like a tiny camera. Like, remember picture in picture on TVs? Like little tiny picture in picture down at the bottom. So that I'm like, cool, they're rescuing Peeta. That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is Finnick in this moment.
Yes, and they downplayed it so much. And I think this is another thing that made me feel so much for Katniss and any of the other victors, that, you know, being in the Hunger Games is a lifetime sacrifice. You know, you are basically a casualty to the Capitol for the rest of your life. And what these children, I will never stop saying children, because I feel like the movie put a card in front of it and never showed us that they were kids again. You know, that these were
like
children.
20-something-year-olds playing, children.
Yeah, that's all 20-something-year-olds playing. And really, these are, like in the book, these are 15 and 16-year-olds, you know.
It's real easy to forget with the way that they looked on the show.
Yeah, but yeah, the games that were played with these children. And Finnick was a child who, after winning the Hunger Games, was sold to other people in sexual trade. And money, of course. That's why he deals with in secrets. You know, it's not an object anymore. I love him airing out everyone's business, you know, especially in a book like this. And we had the same complaint about the movies in the last book, is that the books give us an idea of all the people. The movies can't really spend as much time on all the victors. It lets you know like the shared struggle of all the victors and why some of them are a little loopy and, you know, been through it.
This is why I would love to see this adapted as a television show, because you could have, like, I'm particularly thinking about The Last of Us, how they spend that whole episode on the couple, right? And that's like one of the most powerful episodes in the whole season. I feel like you could have a whole Finnick episode and like some of these other Victors and really dive into their stories and like see how beautifully tragic they are, instead of this like monologue that doesn't. It was great, and the actor acted his ass off, and it was written very well, but I don't think it gets the moment that it deserves because it is intercut with the rescue of Peeta.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Just need that little picture in Dakota. Because, like, you know, we know they're going to rescue him. We know it happens. Like, and they even say when they get back, it was way too easy. They rescue Peeta, Annie, and Joanna. And Joanna I love her. She looks so crazy. She's so skinny. Her head is shaved. You have this like beautiful reunion with Finnick and Annie. And then when Katniss tries to go see Peeta, he chokes her out. And the book was very, in my head, when I was reading, it's like, oh, he's choking her. The movie was like so violent, so aggressive. I appreciated it.
Yeah. It was the one time I felt like he was doing his job as an actor.
It was the one thing they got right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, get it, Joss Hutcherson. Like, crush her windpipe. Like, make it violent. Thank you.
It was violent.
It was violent. It was scary.
The movie ends with an intercutting of Coin giving a new Panem speech to everyone, and Peeta going crazy, tied up to a bed while Katniss is watching. And that's where the movie ended.
And he did not do a good job tied up to that bed acting crazy.
You complained so hard. It was so funny.
Because it was giving Halloween Horror Nights. Okay?
That was real cheap.
It was so cheap and cheesy.
It was giving Halloween Horror Nights. It was. I've seen better Halloween Horror Nights. It was not.
I love.
He was not doing his best.
I know he's capable of better. Okay, I've seen it. That's why I'm just like, that was disappointing. That was weird. Go sit down.
Go sit down. So then when Mockingjay Part 2 opens up, they add some stuff to this that I actually think was needed. You see like the doctor checking out Katniss. Like we see the damage in the movie that we don't really get to know in the book. Like we know like she's hurt, she's in the hospital, they're fixing her. But we get to see her bloodshot eyes. We get to see the bruising in her throat. We get to hear how she really can't speak because he crushed her windpipe like so hard. And then they change this thing where they, like in the book, they want to send someone in that Peeta doesn't know. And so don't they send in like the mayor's daughter? They send in someone random. But in the movie, they send in Katniss's sister. They send in Prim. Like, wouldn't that trigger him the most?
Right? I felt like that was such a boneheaded choice, but it comes from like all these boneheaded choices that they made previously, where like they didn't include the mayor's daughter in the previous movies, and they didn't include some of these members of District 12 in the previous movies. So if you introduce Deli right now in this moment, it would make zero sense. The audience would be like, who the fuck is Deli? And it wouldn't track. But sending in Prim is like, that's a trigger. That is Katniss's direct relative. I'm sorry. That'd be like if they were like, hey, we don't want you to think about Keiki, and they sent in her sister. I'd be like, that's Kiki's sister.
It's so dumb. I think they could have sent in, what was her name, Deli or whatever. And they could have just like, we're going to send in someone that's from District 12. That's the only explanation I needed. Someone from District 12 that really has no connection to any of them other than they lived in the same place. That's fine. Do that. Do that.
It also was weird to me because in the books and in this movie, I think the one thing they did get right with Prim is kind of laying out that she is grown up, you know, and her relationship with Katniss, you very much see that, oh, she is a child of this turmoil too. Like Katniss could not spare her from it. You know, she was forced to grow up quickly too. And Prim is like, lean on me if you need to. Like, I know you went through something hard. And like they very much have like those moments of like sleeping next to each other and, you know, sheltering with each other and doing for each other in the book and in the movie that like isn't really lined up in like the previous stuff. You don't really see them as sisters. You see like her as the second mother to her, you know, but this gave that like insight. So I don't know. I was just maybe hoping they found a different way for someone to talk to Peeta because it doesn't make sense for it to be Prim.
But then they also have her talk about like District 12 and the attack on District 12 and like he's so triggered that he's like, I wish that your sister burned instead of my bakery. Like, oh my God.
I know.
I was like, Jesus, this was a terrible choice. Who said that? Who approved this? So then Coin reluctantly approves to send Katniss to District 2 because Katniss just is like, I got to get out. I can't keep watching this. I can't see Peeta being tortured. He can't be around me. I just need to bye. Something that happens in the book that we don't get in the movie is Gale like sneaking into Katniss's room a la Edward Cullen to give her like a kiss on the forehead before leaving. I just laughed when I read that. I was like, sir, we can't be sneaking. Only Edward gets to sneak into people's rooms and be creepy. Anywho, Gwendolyn Christie is in the movie. Brienne of Tarth. Did you catch that?
The casting budget on this movie was insane.
So this is where we get to what we've been arguing about for a while. Lime and I wrote Taylor, but I think that's wrong. It's meeting with Lime and like the leader of other leader of District 2, and this is where Gale suggests the Death Trap Mountains. And like no one's happy about it, but he's over because it's what they did to 12. And like this whole conversation gets trimmed really like tightly. Coin approves it, and they're like, it works better than imagined. And then when going to speak with these people that they like bomb and trap and bring out of the one exit that they agree on, Katniss is held at gunpoint, gives another great speech about like anti-capital, but the girl still gets shot, which I remember reading that moment the first time and was shocked.
Yeah.
When I read it, it was shocking, right? Like it was shocking when I read it and I was like, oh my God, this is horrific. Something about the way that it was filmed was funny to me. And I'm sorry, maybe I'm a terrible person.
Yes!
But it's just the way that it looks when you see it.
Yeah.
Also, haven't we already learned that like her outfit is like bulletproof and whatnot? So
yeah, but not if he shot her in the head, which is what everyone was worried about.
In the book, it was scary. In the movie, it was kind of funny. And death isn't funny. Yeah. Being shot in the head isn't funny, but it was just weird. Her little speech was weird.
Yeah.
And I probably feel like it's pretty close to verbatim of what was said in the book. It just felt off.
Yeah. And the movie adds a scene, again, because we're getting out of Katniss's first person point of view, of Snow using this footage of Katniss getting shot to like try and kill the rebellion. But Snow is also like, I'm pretty sure she's not dead. And he explains why he doesn't think that she's dead. And he's like, I know that there's going to be a plan. We need to lure them into the city and we're going to make them pay. Because he's not an idiot. You know, Snow's out here like like the way they make him in the movie with these added little scenes is like, you know, Mr. Smithers. He's like, mouse. And he's like going to say his evil plans so that everyone knows what's going on. And I'm like, some of these scenes are needed. Not all of them. And then we get this like happy little wedding. Finnick and Annie get married and it's adorable, but it happens randomly in the movie because the whole point is to like bring some happiness and unity during the chaos.
Right. I actually kind of hate how it is in the movie because you miss all the backstory that you get in the book about how they're like, we're going to have some happiness. We're going to boost morale. We're going to show the capital that they can't crush our spirits. And you have all these fun things like the cake has all these details from their district and they have all their like wedding ceremonies from their district that's different from District 12. And Peeta's doing better because he bakes the cake. And District 12 like plays music and dances, which they don't do in 13. And everybody's like, what is this? Like, you don't get any of that in the movie. You just get a wedding.
Yeah, just a wedding.
You know, again, with the showing how much Prim and Katniss mean to each other, they dance with each other at the wedding. And this is another thing where I just feel like this book and movie kind of just like didn't log on completely because they didn't set up as much of the love they had for each other as siblings.
And like we lose a lot of Katniss and Peeta because like Peeta does start doing better while he's there. Like he and Katniss get together and she starts asking questions about the two of them. He's like, I finally see the truth, and she gets mad and so she leaves. And like Katniss is like, wants to go to the Capitol and she's going to train. I wish we had a training montage for her because the idea of just throwing her in with all these militant people is crazy to me. The movie also like makes a huge change, which is what gets rid of a lot of things that I actually really enjoyed in this book. And it's when Katniss, like they cut her training and instead they make it about her sneaking onto a plane so that she can take supplies to the Capitol. Like, I hate this. It changes everything. I was like, why do this? So like they do that instead of letting us see her train, instead of really giving us a bunch of her and Joanna when they're roommates, which I wanted more of. We also don't see like Peeta.
I love that in the books.
I love it. And like Peeta getting better, like the whole thing at the lunch table in the book. Like,
yeah, he joins them for pot roast night, you know?
I loved that. There's just like so much they left out. Like they gave a way better explanation of like Boggs's device and why it's so important. Because, you know, later when he transfers it to her, like the book makes you understand like, oh, this has everything. This has the maps. This has profiles. This has contact. You know what I mean? Like, and this is just like, give me the thing. Like, but why is it important? Because it's our directions? I don't understand.
Yeah, where in the book, you know, you had Katniss playing like Capital video games and out here training. And, you know, we learn why Joanna wasn't a part of the group that comes in, you know, to take down the Capitol at the end. And that they made them like this elite team to go through. But instead she sneaks and Gale's there. And I'm just like, whatever.
It's so dumb.
You miss some of how manipulative Coin is again, because Coin specifically lets Katniss and Joanna train all this time. Lets them like get ready to be able to go. Like pumps them up and is like, yeah, you guys are totally going to go. And then assigns all of them, Gale and our previous victors, to the same unit that they're basically just going to use to shoot propaganda for. They're not actually there to go fight. And like all of them feel some level of betrayal about that.
Absolutely. Where am I?
Yeah. And then, you know, we didn't see like Finnick's whole storyline too well of him kind of being a little crazy without Annie, you know, in 13. And him, you know, training and going out there and being a part of this task force is like a big deal. You know, he has his own special weapon just like Katniss does. And it's hard for him to leave Annie and do this, but it's a sacrifice he's making. And all that is taken away with making her sneak in and not giving us that training montage. It could have been a montage.
Just really like easy montage with a couple of hits of her and Joanna like digging at each other. That's all I needed. I am glad that they did keep the like welcome to the 76th Hunger Games thing, even if they did give it to Finnick. It's such a fun, like, I think interesting, necessary line that I'm just glad that they at least kept with all these changes that they were doing. They do cut these things that I don't think were necessary, because throughout the whole movies, they are intercutting war. So we do have like a couple chapters of that were just war and people dying and like the strategy until like President Coin sends Peeta and Katniss, which is like putting them together pisses off Boggs. You know, they don't use a lot of that. And instead we just kind of like jump ahead, which I'm actually okay with.
Yeah, and in the book, you know, there's like League 1 and 2 and like Mitchell and Holmes, like all these people who are like actually like star people, fighters who are a part of this group. And like we learned about them in the book. We don't really know anything about them in the movie. Like it doesn't even matter when they die. Like I'm just like, well, you were there. Like when I caught the names, you know, watching this movie, I was just like, oh yeah, they were like, you know, part of the training and all of that. They were like the stars of this district, but I know nothing about you. I'm sorry.
And instead of like shooting another PSA thing, like we get more Katniss and Gale like plotting to go rogue. And we do get a little bit of Haymitch scolding Katniss about her treatment of Peeta, but it's not as heavy-handed as it was in the book. And I think it should have been, because he's like, look, if the roles were reversed, Peeta would not give up on you. Peeta wouldn't be doing these things. And that's very true. He is correct. And it's much more like casual, a little throwaway for me in the movie. But then we do get this really great scene between Boggs and Katniss and why she's important to him. And I thought that was really great. Again, I love Mahershala Ali, so I will listen to him talk anytime.
He's so fantastic.
And, you know, we get that setup where we get like, you know, Coin probably would want Katniss dead, you know?
For sure.
And Boggs understands that.
And then when Peeta shows up, it's very different, but I don't need to talk about the movie version of it. So like when he does show up, the whole squad, while hesitant, is behind it, because in the book we have seen Peeta getting better. So while they are cautious, they're not dicks to him. And that's what the movie changes, because we don't see any of Peeta getting better. It's just like, oh, here he goes, he's going to attack Katniss. And I really miss that they took out the real or not real game.
Yes.
I love that.
It's so important. Like, they're all there for him. He's asking questions. They're like, well, why? Like, we'll tell you if it's real or not real. And do you trust us? He's like, I trust you. And like, they're helping him fill in the gaps. And it's part of what helps him figure out the difference between truth and a lie, right? Because we learned that they were using tracker jacker venom. And we know when Katniss was stung, it puts like a haze, a glow on everything. And like, that's how he knows there's like a glimmer to the lies. And this really helps him figure that out, even though he is triggered later. And I think it was a mistake. It was such a mistake to even just take out this game. It was so necessary for their team building.
And it also strengthens him offering himself as bait, which I feel like you don't really get in the movie, because it just seems like, oh, well, Gale and Katniss decided to split off. But really, Peeta was like, I'm going to offer myself as bait and get them off your tail so you can go this way.
Exactly.
And that's also Tigress. Can we talk about Tigress?
Almost. We're not quite there, but we're getting there. We got, y'all, Boggs has to die. Okay.
Yeah, we can't. We have 2 important deaths that we can't skip over, because I need to talk about them.
Yeah, I'm like, no, because this is important, because they're off trying to, like, they have that device that tells them where the pods are, but unfortunately it's not perfect, because the things keep constantly changing. These are game makers that are setting up these mines, right? And it's not just like you step on it, things blow up. This is like step on it, goo comes everywhere, fire happens, arrows are shot. Like, it's crazy. It's basically a Hunger Games like moment. And so when someone steps on it, Boggs, he loses his legs, has to transfer the power device to Katniss. Peeta starts attacking Katniss. There's like a whole, like, it's all pure chaos. And then when, like, the thing the movie changes that I don't love is when Peeta's like fighting with the guy who gets him off of Katniss, the movie shows him purposefully shoving him into that weird, like, black blob. But the book, it's very much an accident. So, and he is like reeling from guilt because it was an accident and not because it was on purpose. And so I don't love that. And then they're all hiding in this building, and we get to these like weird lizard mutt things that are so much scarier in the book than they are in the movie, in my opinion. Because they're supposed to like, they're all hissing Katniss's name. Peeta starts hissing Katniss's name. They, like I said, they smell like roses, and they've got people eyes. You know what I mean? It's just so terrifying. It kind of reminds me of that movie, The Descent, with those creepy people that lived in the...
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how I pictured them.
I still think that they were kind of scary. They weren't like a complete fail like the dogs of the first movie.
True. I can say that. I can agree with that.
Better than the dogs, but still not great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the movie gives us the moment where they're all fighting and Finnick sacrificing himself so that everyone can get out. And I am heartbroken and so sad when reading this and when watching it.
Finnick deserved so much better, and it makes me angry every time I think about it, because it's just, in the book, it's incredibly heartbreaking. In the movie, it still hurts, but I feel like it happens so quickly in the movie. It's just like, oh, and Finnick is dead. Bye. Like, he deserved better. What have they done to my boy?
I know. Oh, also the light room, like running through the light room that if you touch the light, you're incinerated. The movie did it way better than I imagined. Like, I just couldn't like figure out what that was. And so getting that visual, I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's true. When I had imagined it in the book, I couldn't remember the scene from the movie. So I had saw like just a room, like an office kind of corridor situation, kind of gray with like light that they were dodging. And then watching the movie, I was like, oh no, it's that one like train station from like Germany that like, so like they've shot Bourne in and like Mission Impossible and all that. Like, what a great way to use that space. But also, y'all really flew there just for this scene? Like,
I know. So this is where they kind of move the stay with me kiss always thing. And like Peeta's worried that if we're all locked in a room together, I'm going to murder her because I hear the noises in my brain because he's like low jacked, right? And so they kind of leave him behind and she kisses him. And she's like, and I hope my love and my kisses will save him. It's like, okay, that's how I feel about that. So then they find themselves in the Capitol somewhere. And this is when we run into Tigress. And so my issue with Tigress is that this is the first time we've ever seen anyone in the Capitol like this. So as far as the movies go, it's incredibly jarring.
Yeah, but also exactly what was written in the book and exactly what I expected Capitol people to look like. Like, you know, I wanted dermals and tattoos and wild hair. Like, when I think of Katniss's like beauty team, like they are so cool looking. Yeah. And we never got that, you know, in the movie.
I mean, they don't have to be cool looking. They can be horrifying because I kind of feel like that's where the Capitol should have been. Because Tigress, while cool, if you saw her walking down the street, you would be like, oh, you know?
That's true. But again, they glazed over it all. They made it palatable to human beings. All of a kind. But yeah, I really expected it to be a little bit more foreign. But again, Tigress is an example of how the Capitol takes a person and loves them and then uses them up, and they're no longer of use to them. When they mentioned that she was once one of the most famed designers of the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Tigress was one of the few parts that this second movie got right, because there's so many things it got wrong. But seeing her is so incredibly jarring because in the film series, we have not seen anyone that looks like her. And it goes back to the very first movie where we're like, they did this all wrong. Because when you're talking about Katniss's team, like one of them has like pink skin or something that they always dye. And that's how you can tell it's her in a crowd. And, you know, they describe the original game maker as like looking like really modified. And they talk about how people in the Capitol have like whiskers and are dyed gold and all these crazy things. And you don't see that in any of the movies. So then when Tigress shows up, you're like, what the fuck is happening now? And it's so jarring and it doesn't make sense. And it makes me so angry that it's a detail that they left out because, to Kiki's point, yes, Tigress is a perfect example of how the Capitol will use and abuse people. But I feel like if they had included this difference in appearance, it really would have driven home the differences between the people who live in the Capitol and have all this money and have all this expendable income and ability to do all these crazy body modifications, and then people who are living in the seam who are just scraping to get by.
Exactly.
Yeah. And here's the thing. The way I justified it in my head, because, you know, Tigress is out of fashion. She's used up to the Capitol. They don't want her anymore. And we haven't seen anybody who looks like her. I thought of it a lot like the Kardashian trend. You know, everybody was buying the lips and the boobs and the butts. And now the Kardashians are dissolving their fillers and going to these small little natural bodies and getting rid of all the boobs and all the butt. And other people who've already committed to this can't. So you look at those people and you go, oh man, she's stuck in like 2015. And like, we can't do anything about that because they've already made those choices, you know? So that's kind of how I see it. Like, oh, now you're of like a past choice and future.
Yeah, I can get behind that. While they're in Tigress's basement, Gail and Peeta very much have a Edward and Jacob conversation from the tent about
that is exactly what I thought of when I was thinking. I'm so glad you labeled it that way.
Because that's what it is. Like, it's the whole thing from the tent in Eclipse. And it's all about who Katniss will love and who she'll pick. And of course, Katniss overhears this conversation and she gets so mad because I think she takes it wrong. Like, she takes it not in the way that it was meant, because like he's right. And like they both know he's right and it is what it is. And then when they are walking, because it is time, they got to try and hide. I just love that they're like going to hide in hoods and they don't think anyone's going to recognize them. Like, that's the disguise.
Every movie ever. And it makes me so angry.
The Capitol, like, they messed it up in the movie, but like in the book, I saw like a montage. Tigress decked them out in all her cool
yes,
and they fit in. But There was really no dramatic transformation in the movie. I was just like, and they put on a hood. Oh, wow.
Tigress gave them some hoodies and they left. That's it.
I was like, wow, okay, that's what we did. Sounds great.
We missed the part in the book that I love when they're like in that old lady's apartment and they like start wearing her wigs and her robes out. We don't get any of that.
I love that.
No. Or, well, we did get one thing that we did get like a little snippet about is like they're eating food with Tigress and they were like, dang, people in the Capitol eat like this every day. Like it was so good.
Yeah.
And they're literally eating out of a can, which I was like, okay, cool. That's one like disparity thing that we're analyzing and showing.
Yeah.
And we don't even talk about Tigress being weird either. She was like, oh, it's fine. You can eat everything. I only eat little pieces of raw meat. I was like, girl, what?
You cannot eat tartar every day. That's bad for you.
She is committed to the bit.
So Gale and Katniss are on their way to murder President Snow. However, on the way, as the peacekeepers are checking the hoods of the people to make sure that it's not either one of them, the earth starts breaking beneath them. And I'm just like, this is the worst earthquake ever. But then while this is happening, Gale gets captured by the peacekeepers and he is screaming to her for her to shoot him. And she is just so like taken over by the chaos and the screaming and everything that's going on that she's like, she hears him but doesn't hear him, and then feels horrible that he gets taken because she could have saved him by killing him, which sounds terrible. But I also don't think Katniss had it in her to do it.
No, I don't think she had it in her to do it. But also the movie doesn't show that it's like children who are burning, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have like a couple little calls to it where they're like, children first, pass your children through the gate, you know?
Because President Snow is using the children as a shield.
Yeah, I can understand why like Katniss is like, the ground just split. Like people are running in chaos, like kids get bombed and are burning alive. Like that is traumatic. And the movie does not give it like it should be.
Sure. So like President Snow is using kids as he's using kids as a shield to hope like to protect himself so that people wouldn't do anything. And then the bombs show up as silver presents, just like in the Hunger Games. And the whole plan happens. The bombs explode. The medics rush in. Katniss sees that one of them is Prim. And then the next round of bombs goes off, killing her sister, blasting Katniss back, and knocking her out. So Peeta's nowhere to be found. Gale has been captured, and Katniss has been knocked unconscious after seeing her sister die.
This is the point where the book kind of like sped it all up.
Haymitch blames the bombing on the Capitol, and then Katniss finds where President Snow is, and he tells her that the Capitol didn't have anything to do with it, and then she starts spiraling and like wanting to find out the truth. And she confronts Gale about it, and Gale says that he doesn't know, but it doesn't matter in the end because it's done. Like everything's done. Like this happened. I'm out of the running. I feel horrible. I don't know who did it because I didn't authorize it. No one wants to own up to it. And the movie made that scene so dramatic for no reason. It was very melodramatic. And then we get this scene, like we never get the truth. And in the end, I can see it going either way. If it was District 13 and Coin, I do not think anyone but maybe President Coin and Plutarch knew Prim would be there. But then if it was the Capitol, I can see President Snow blaming it, knowing that Katniss wouldn't know where the truth was, and bombing his own people and it not being a thing for him, hoping to take out Katniss.
Yeah, but I also don't understand how like Prim would be someone chosen because she was just barely getting trained, you know, on
Well, she volunteered. They said she volunteered to go.
They blatantly say that she volunteered to go, and I'm in the camp that it was 13 because we know that Coin is ruthless. And we have a scene where Gale he describes this bomb, both in the books and the movie. He describes creating a bomb that does this in this exact instance. We're like, hey, you get the people out in the open and then you pretend that you're doing something nice and it's a bomb. And Katniss in both instances is like, man, that's horrific. And then it happens. And do we think that Gale ever knew that Prim was going to be there? No, but that's the point. The point is that he was willing to do it to anyone. And anyone who would have gotten bombed and killed him that way had someone who loved them the way that Katniss loved Prim.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily think Gale knew when they would be using those bombs, because while he was privy to some things, he wasn't privy to everything.
No, but he's still at fault.
I don't think he's at fault.
I agree with you, Jordan. But I also think that this was Coin's way of reeling Katniss in to her. Making Katniss pledge allegiance to her. It was a capital plane that flew over and did it. So it's like, if Katniss was none the wiser and didn't know about these weapons being created, Gale having told her, described them to her, then she wouldn't have had the ability to point the finger back at Coin. If she didn't have that conversation with Snow in the Rose Garden, she wouldn't have the ability to point the finger back at Coin. Like, these are just more things that kind of snowball back to her making a decision that Coin and Snow are two sides of the same thing.
Yeah, in the end, I agree. I do think it was Coin to do it. I don't think it was the Capitol, as much as they tried to make it that. And I would love to think that Haymitch didn't know either, but I honestly don't know.
Well, I think Haymitch didn't know because in the book, Haymitch is the one who ends up with Katniss at first. Mm-hmm. I feel like Haymitch was like, y'all played me.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Or he's like, I'm done playing your games. You hurt her. Like, because I don't think Haymitch knew that Prim was there. I think Prim, like, the only people that probably knew was Coin and probably Plutarch in the end.
Yeah.
And they were both like, in order to control her. But then there's this whole scene where President Coin, like in the book and in the movie, puts to vote to have a Hunger Games with the children of the people in charge of the Capitol. And I'm just like, first of all, why the children? Just make it be the people in charge of the Capitol if you're going to do it at all.
Because you hurt our kids, we're going to hurt your kids. Also, Coin, you're in 13. Y'all have not given up people since this thing started. So why you want to sacrifice Capitol children? Yeah. Like, these are kids. They cannot change the world that they were born into. Like, they did not make these decisions.
And Katniss throws in a yes vote. So Haymitch throws in a yes vote. And when I read that the first time, I was like, that's crazy. That's this. And then you realize it's her playing President Coin to make her feel comfortable. So then when we get to the big crux of, Katniss is supposed to murder Snow and murders Coin instead, like, Coin never saw that coming because she thought Katniss was that she had won and that she had gotten Katniss on her side.
When all along, the seed has been planted. Like, Coin, you killed my sister. You want a slave to you? Let me give it to you.
Yeah. And then Peeta stops her from taking Nightlock because she was ready to like kamikaze it. She was going to take her out and then take herself out.
I know. She had nothing left to live for, which I get it. In the book, they kind of talk about it,
I get
she doesn't see her mom after this. Her mom's all messed up from losing Prim too. So It's kind of like she went through all this hospital stuff alone. She knows she's alone now.
And Jordan, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was just saying, I get why she was ready to just end it all, because what did she have left, She doesn't trust Gale anymore. Peeta she doesn't know if Peeta is going to be on her side or not. She hasn't seen her mom. Prim is dead. Like, the girl in her mind has nothing, and she is 16 years old, and I definitely get that train of thought.
100%. Yeah, I do too. And then the movie had to change something because Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away during the filming of this franchise. And so instead of replacing the speech that Plutarch has with her, like, they had Haymitch read a letter from him, and I think that worked really well. Instead of like recasting him, I think that was a better choice. And Effie, who in the books is gone until the end, but we had her the whole time, and they're so like, she and Plutarch were hilarious together. To me, I had a whole note about them like wearing sunglasses inside. Anyway, so Effie like comes to say goodbye, and then she and Haymitch make out, and I full-heartedly believe that the movie characters absolutely had a drunken night or two together.
Sure.
Oh, same. By the end of everything they had gone through, the movie characters, they were doing what they were doing in District 13 and forget all about it. And mind you, they've known each other for years at this point.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't necessarily think the book versions, but definitely Elizabeth Banks and for sure Woody Harrelson.
God, I love Elizabeth Banks.
She's so good in this. I'm sorry. And especially these movies. Anyway, like these two, she's so good.
She can just take a character and like just live it,
Stand with it. So Katniss gets sentenced to live back in District 12 for the rest of her life, and Haymitch is sent to watch her. And I just kind of love the idea of the two of them, like for months in isolation, just like being weird together and like besties. And eventually Peeta shows up. But then also while they're there, like we don't have Greasy say, we don't see Haymitch constantly checking in on her, which I'm like, in the book, that's what happens. They're more fun together.
Yeah, I felt like in the book, I imagined Katniss went full like crazy derelict on the street, like I'm like changing my clothes and I walk around with my shotgun, like, she's literally gone rogue. She stopped showering. They talk about that, I'm like, she stinks. Like she crazy.
Yeah. And then we get to the ending that I absolutely viscerally hate with my entire body. And it's not just because she ends up with Peeta. It's so much more than that. It's because like they keep constantly trying to justify these new choices she's making for herself. And I just want her to be alone. Like Peeta wears her down to have children, which is something she never wanted. And they talk about it in there of how much he basically begged her for like 20 years, it feels like, to have kids. And she finally says yes. And I'm like, look, if we're going to do that and we're going to make
know what? I would have been okay with it if she was like, I found a great therapist in District 12 and I worked through all my trauma and I'm a new person and I've grown into new skin and I could happily have children. Then I'd have been like, fuck yeah, you do that, girl. Get your life. But this man just wore her down and I don't agree with that.
No. And she lives in constant fear because maybe one day he's going to choke her out like Owen from Grey's Anatomy in her sleep.
You crazy. But yes, that's true. And in the movie, we don't see that, people came back to 12 after, a new president was put in place and that they like start to rebuild a little bit and things happened, we don't see any of that.
Yeah. And I'm like, look, if they're going to live in District 12 and have children, they better go on vacations. Otherwise, we're going to have some flowers in the attic, Blue Lagoon shit going on with their children.
Oh, my God.
Sorry, Keiki. Go ahead.
No. It's fine. But still, I am 100% in agreement. I don't even know if that's a word right now. Mm-hmm. An agreement, 100% agreement with your agreements.
Just let her be crazy and alone.
Let her be alone.
So much. If any character in a franchise like this doesn't need a man in her life, it is Katniss.
I'm like, Katniss, like, take down the District 12 gates, let people go into the forest, let Katniss open up a hunting shop, a butchery or whatever, and just live her maniac life for the rest of her life. She really just needs peace. Like, that's what she has earned. Peace of mind. And like, y'all can say there's love there. I'm sure there is, whatever.
I don't think there is at all, to be honest. I think not in the way that there should be.
I think there's convenience.
Yeah. It's platonic and they keep trying to make it romantic and I wish they'd stop, okay? Now we got babies in the mix. Kids don't need this. These two people have been through it. Katniss has killed people. Like, Peeta is a weapon. Like, they don't need children.
They do, yeah.
But I guess the world rebuilds. Also, let's talk about the fact that like it isn't shown, but Finnick and Annie had a baby.
Yeah, they had a little baby that looked like him.
That was really sad. I was like, dang, he knocks her up and then dies. Sad.
Well, I really enjoyed my second time reading through this book series as an adult. A lot of my opinions stayed the same. Some of my opinions changed, but in the end, it's a really great read.
Oh, I loved it. I'm a fan. It gives the movies a little bit of a bad taste because I was a big fan of the movies. After reading the book, I'm like, dang, they messed up. It's kind of like at one point with Harry Potter, I was completely caught up and the movies were coming out and I was just like, they get it wrong. They get everything wrong, Yeah,
I had to stop rereading those because I was like losing my mind in the movies.
Yeah, it's just one of those moments where I had to like have that conversation with me mentally. Also, a lot of things were cleared up for me. I was like, why doesn't she choose Gale? Like, they better make it good. They didn't make it good. There was no good reasoning. Team Katniss should have been alone.
Katniss should have been alone.
Katniss should have been single.
Yeah. Jordan, how did you feel about this read through?
I actually like the books better now that I'm older. I think when I was younger, I was caught up in just oversaturation of dystopian YA novels and had read too many of them and was burnt out. And so this didn't matter as much to me. And now as an adult, having like space from the genre and that subgenre and reading them again with adult eyes, I think they hit a lot harder for me now. Because like, I don't know, my niece is in her 20s, but I'm like, God, if they sent her off to war, I'd fucking kill myself. So like imagining a 16-year-old doing it, like, no way, this is horrific.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know my niece is 12, so like she'd be right there ready to go in the reaping for the first time. I can't even imagine. I look at her and she's so little, so it's like heartbreaking.
She's so tiny and quiet. I'd kill someone.
She'd be stealthy though. I think she'd make it for a while.
I know, she'd make it for a while. She's pretty good at what is that game we play?
She's smart. She's clever.
Next, we're gonna read the prequel, President Snow's like villain origin story. What is it? I never remember the name of it. Songbird of Snakes and Songs and stuff. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Ballad of Roses and Snowbirds.
Yeah, of mouth sores and whatever. But yeah, so that's what we'll be checking out and reading next, which is going to be exciting because none of us have read that one. So I'm excited.
Among Us.
Among Us. There it is. So I'm really excited to dive into like something that I don't know anything about. At all. I have no inkling, brand new.
I'm excited. I've been waiting. I have sped through all these books.
I'm just gonna pre-say it that boy they cast in the movie is too attractive, and they're gonna make me horny for President Snow, and I'm already angry about it.
Girl, when he shaves his head, I'm like done. I'm so done.
Yo, have you seen pictures of young Donald Sutherland, by the way? Because I saw some of those on the internet the other night, and also, damn.
Yeah, if you've never looked it up, look it up. Young Donald Sutherland was a very attractive man. Very attractive.
He could have my number.
Hey. But yeah, unless anyone else has anything to say, we can wrap up and get out of here.
It's given Hosier. I just looked up young Donald Sutherland.
Good night.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, send this to your friends, make them listen along. And we will see you or you'll hear us for, we won't see you, but you'll hear us for the next one. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.